Welcome to Girl in the Gov, the podcast,
where our goal is to make politics more accessible and less intimidating.
The show features an interview with an expert in the political field, walking us through the many cues we have about politics, civics, government, and more.
By providing civic education in the places we are, on our phones, and in the language we speak. And yes, we know we say like a lot.
It's kind of the point, because politics needed a rebrand. Welcome back to Girl in the Gov, the podcast. It's another Wednesday, another episode, and we actually have a fun little game to play in our intro today that Sam's been just itching to do.
No, like literally. Okay, so here's the backstory. And I can't remember if I told this on the pod previously or if I just made a TikTok about it, but I literally was in this used bookstore, okay? And just perusing. It's always a good spot to take some content. You know, a lot of things will say politics, something, whatever. Good background imagery on our story, right? Always good to have. And I see this card game, okay? Zing a politician. It's like a deck of 5 cards. I'm like, you know what? Worst case scenario, it just is like fun to take a picture of and bringing it home. Turns out it's this fun game where it's like the simplest game. And for any of my friends listening who know how bad I am at following board game instructions, like if I can follow this.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually when someone starts telling me card game rules, I just like black out. It's like when someone tells me their name, like I'll ask and I want to know. And then when they speak, it doesn't register. I don't know what's wrong with me. But
literally out one ear, or no, in one ear, out the other. I literally have my friends love the game Codenames. I hate it. I don't understand it. Like, I think I'm a very smart person. Someone's going to troll me on that. But like, genuinely, my brain does not comprehend this game. And every share house thing we've ever done, you can find me in the other room scrolling on Insta, getting work done, taking long hot showers, like whatever. I'm like, have fun. I'll see you guys in a few hours. Like, I don't even want to participate. This game, it's easy.
Okay,
because all you do,
different than the Serena Kerrigan, Let's Fucking Date game that we played a few weeks ago.
That one was really fun. Okay, different vibe. So basically, like, there's a card and it has a phrase on it or description, and then you're just supposed to say like who comes to mind.
And I'm honestly so bad at shit like this. Like, you know how I am. Yeah. Okay. But let's try it.
I have one immediately for this, which usually I ask you and then I like don't have an answer because you promise me a brain cells.
No, okay. That's refreshing because Lord knows I probably won't be able to come up with one. Go ahead.
I don't know. Drum roll, please. Okay. Weekend, but still has a bite. And the card is a lion. So Leo. Such Leo energy. It's a
weekend,
lion.
But still has a bite. I don't understand. Weekend, but still, I genuinely don't get that.
Like someone that was really strong, but like politically, someone's kind of knocked them off their horse, but they still have like a bite. They still have some power.
Wait, weekend? It wasn't it spelled
weekend.
Like
weekend?
Oh, weekend. Samantha's accent. Something happened there.
Wait, hold on. No.
I was like, weekend? Like the weekend? Like, what is that? I don't know this phrase.
Wait, hold on that for 1 second. Well, this gives you a moment to like think about what your answer might be. I did not know that I'm not able to pronounce, now I have to really think about it, the word diaper correctly. I apparently, like when I say it, like just without thinking about it, I kind of like say driver. And I was doing a TikTok the other day for like our newsletter that had an action item related to a diaper bank. And it sounds like a driver bank.
Yeah.
And I was telling her
there's something about
like,
your pronunciations.
I don't want to
tell you. Yeah. Weekend instead of weekend.
I wonder if that's a Jersey
weekend.
Thing.
You said it like it's like the weekend. Yeah. Anyways. Okay, well, what's your answer for that one?
Mitch McConnell.
Weekend, but still has
bite.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know why like Hillary Clinton came to mind.
Oh. But
honestly, I struggle to still find her bite these days. She's kind of like taken the back seat after she got weakened. What, right?
I humbly disagree. Well, I do. And I mean,
she's doing a lot like in the private sector, I guess, but like, I don't know.
I feel like she does a lot of interviews and a lot of press, and those interviews have a lot of impact. Like I feel, or maybe it's just the algorithms I'm on and the shows that I'm watching, but I feel like I see a lot
no,
of
it's true.
Hillary
She is like
Clinton
still
content.
in the media.
But from like an elected
yeah.
official point of view of like still like decide, like she could have, I don't think it would have been the move, but after losing, she could have run for Senate again or try to get a cabinet. Like she could have gone in a different direction.
I think that's a good answer. She got weakened, but she still has some bite of like putting her opinions out there, you know, making them known.
Totally. Okay. Drum roll. Next one. Clint, an opportunist. And I think it's a vulture. Know what the, wait, side note, you know what this
Dean
reminds me
Phillips
of?
came to mind immediately.
You know, that interesting. I have to think about this one for a second.
Oh, I have one too. I have another one.
Okay.
This is a different vibe than my last answer, but Clarence Thomas.
He is an opportunist.
Opportunist.
You were onto something with that. Mike Johnson, opportunist.
I mean, everyone is in the political
It is a little
space.
bit like political nature, generally. And I think you have to be that way to a degree, like to function. Like, I don't think, like, I hate the term
make your way,
but you have to like,
you have to network,
take opportunities. Totally. Look, I say this all the time to like people that like ask about like, oh, like where'd you, you know, like what industry you used to work in, blah, blah, whatever. And how like networking was just like not really a thing or it just was like not it, but like in politics, like to.
Honestly, justice for opportunists. Like being an opportunist is like actually a good thing. It's like, seize the day, seize the opportunities you're given, go out there, make something of yourself. Like,
wow, this is a sideline speech.
I'm just all over the place. I can't obviously have negative vibes to it, which is why I named the people I did. But yeah, I don't know.
Sure. Okay, let's do one more. Secretly harboring a toe fetish.
This is the one I was waiting for.
Yeah.
Ooh, God, this could go
Careful,
so many ways.
Do not get us sued for defamation. I swear to God.
Listen, no, it's just a theory. Oh, gosh. Who do I want to come after first? You know, like that's just where my brain is going.
Mm-hmm.
Toe fetish. Ain't nothing wrong with the toe fetish, but who I see it for is, drumroll,
I feel like it's got to be someone like a Lindsey Graham would make sense to me, but I don't want to like limit to him. Like it's someone with that type of persona.
But I just really don't want to come after toe fetishes. So I also kind of want to like just who would be funniest?
Mike Pence with a foot fetish.
100%. That type of vibe.
Yeah.
I'll think of one for the Democratic Party. That's a good one. Yeah. For a Republican. Democratic Party, Gavin Newsom.
Interesting. I really don't see that one.
And that's probably one that a lot of people wouldn't be mad at.
Now you have a point.
Versus Lindsey Graham. if Lindsey Graham comes to you with a foot fetish and Gavin Newsom comes to you with a foot fetish, you're going to have a different perception of foot fetishes depending on which one of those people come to you with their foot fetish. You know what I mean?
Totally. Like when you're like, absolutely not, what's wrong with you? And the other, you're like, oh, I could get behind that.
Yeah. Perspective.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. Foot fetishes. You know what I think though? It's like, I think that things like that are like rampant in DC.
Yeah.
I really do. So.
Probably.
Just from like what I've seen on Hinge. I'll just put it that way.
No.
Like.
Scary.
So, yeah. Anyways.
Anywho, we do have a podcast to get into today. A pertinent topic at the moment. Immigration.
Wow. Literally.
The word on everyone's lips right now in the political sphere. Immigration. We get into it. We get into the messaging around it and just the current state of the issue and topic of immigration in this country.
Yeah, which literally keeps heating up, which if you guys have not been paying attention, we did a little bit on it in one of our recent GovHub newsletters of what that immigration bill that everyone's been chit-chatting about had in it. And it's a laundry list. I almost didn't put it in there because it had so many bullet points to it. So Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
Anyways, regardless, where that currently stands is RIP DOA, because the Republicans are like, oh, I should listen to Trump. And they said no, or he said no. So now we're not going to do anything. And now they won't pass other things because they're saying, well, we wanted an immigration bill. It's all games.
It's
All
just political games. Yeah.
So whether you
Sad.
support what's in it or not, it's just like an interesting vision of the chaos of it, of like more than anything, the Republicans showing that they don't want to do anything about what they scream about all the time.
Mhm.
Again, like it's one of those things you don't have to agree with what's in that bill to see like the drama for the drama. You know, the forest through
Yeah.
the hills or whatever that phrase is. Forest through the trees? Forest through the There's a forest involved. That's all I can tell y'all. Anyways, moving back to this episode, part of the games, the chaos is the messaging around all these things like Maddie was saying. And naturally, we have to get into like what the GOP has been messaging about immigration and border security for a while. And then also like the Dems and like what is going to be at the tip of the tongue throughout the tip of the tongue.
Give it the
It's
tongue,
fun
the
to-
teeth. There's like some type of song that goes like that.
I don't know. I can't even say weekend correctly.
No, there's been a lot of pronunciation flags throughout this episode on your end.
Anyways, sorry. Oh my God, I can't even stop. Okay. So anyways, we get into this conversation with Beatriz Lopez, who is the Deputy Director of Immigration Hub. She is a delight and walks us through all of the messaging, like we said, for this year. What's just been going on, giving us sort of that background scoop. So without further ado, here is Beatriz. All right, we're getting into it. Beatriz, welcome to the show. We're talking about immigration today, which, oh my God, how many different rabbit holes can we go down? My goodness.
Yeah.
But to get things started, you work for a organization called Immigration Hub. Can you give us the rundown on what you guys do, especially for people that might not be familiar with your work?
Yeah, so we're a national organization that is focused on advocacy on Capitol Hill, strategically organizing other groups to respond to moments of crisis, and also do a rapid response. So we do a lot of communications, a lot of research. You know, we are sort of that at the center of what's really happening in government when it comes to immigration, especially moments like we're living right now, where they're currently negotiating on a deal on immigration. We were set up to be a rapid response organization in response to the greatest threat the immigration system has ever had, and that's former President Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to take a step back before we dive into all of that, can you kind of give us the rundown of how you really got into this line of work?
Yeah, well, personally, I started off actually in labor. And one of the things that I started seeing and what we started working on really in the labor movement was seeing that there is a lot of immigrants who were becoming part of the workforce in large numbers. And the more that we saw immigrants part of this labor force, it's that a lot of them, either they're undocumented or their status hadn't changed in a long time. And in order to make a much more powerful labor force, we need people to become American citizens and fully be part of embracing their workers' rights and, increase and our own working families, to be honest. And so I started working in the immigration reform movement. It's been over probably 2 decades since we've seen an update in the laws. And I started seeing a lot of, the impact it has at the community level. And as a child of immigrants who came during a time where, President Reagan at that time offered asylum to a lot of people who were feeling persecution and communism, my family being one of the benefactors of that, the kind of thinking back then when it came to immigration, it's really become an important issue dear to my heart, but also dear to my community and my family. So that is how I first started in immigration.
Totally. And your point about also the fact that laws haven't changed in 2 decades, I'm curious your perspective on like why that is. Like, why is this such an issue that gets roadblocked at every turn? I feel like we're constantly hearing politicians, yelling, screaming, having fits about like, it's not working, there's a crisis, and not negating that. But then it doesn't seem like any solution ever passes. Like, I feel like I can think of like being a kid not too long ago, but kind of a while ago, and that still being the status quo. So I'm curious, like, why does there seem to be like no movement on this issue? It's so important.
Sure. Yes. At first we got very close, and this is back in 2013. That's the closest that we've gotten since for a very long time. In 2013, comprehensive immigration reform bill passed the Senate. And then as soon as it went into the House, it kind of fell apart there with the support. The House has always been the trickiest probably place ever. And, the reason, if you look back at why it fell apart, there's something changing in America and changing in the Republican Party at that point. So the biggest impediment to that law was when, remember, this guy called Eric Cantor, who was the Speaker of the House, he lost his electoral race to this like unknown, slightly extremist Tea Party guy. And so that was kind of like the end of the movement or the possibility of something happening on immigration reform. But that moment in time really represents something that happened, this pivot that happened in America, where we saw a party become much more extreme. Mm-hmm. And so by the time that we got to 2016, and I'm sure you guys have talked about the Tea Party movement in the past and how that sort of evolved into what the Republican Party is today. And so we fast forward to 2016, and Trump captures the imagination of suburbanites, rural communities who are tired, stressed, scared. The future is, although the economy is doing great at that time, after President Obama and Democrats saved it, right? He just captures their imagination and really starts weaponizing immigration and creating immigrants as the boogeymen who are coming into their communities, who are threatening them. And that really takes a hold of the Republican Party. And they begin to become very dogged in their heels. And so any time that we've been close to any sort of good policies or even bipartisan policies, these folks at the extreme right do everything possible to kill that bill, those proposals. So that is where we are today. And they keep moving that goalpost even further to the right. And it's getting a little scary. So
yeah,
but that's sort of the state of immigration today.
That's actually like another question I was going to ask too. It's like with that goalpost moving and sort of understanding where we're at, maybe like party to party comparison, like generally speaking, like where are the Republicans on immigration right now? Like what is like that they're saying or they're standing on, like, this is the type of policy we want versus like, what are the types of policies that the Democrats want? And I know there's some variability in there, but like if a generalization would be possible.
Yes. So you have the Republican Party who, if you were really right now walking the halls of Congress, you'd hear a lot about this bill called H.R. 2. H.R. 2 is this bill is very representative of what they stand for. It's about basically banning asylum. It's about making it near impossible for anybody to apply for any form of legal pathway if they're fleeing persecution, violence, or looking for economic opportunity. They want to make it really hard. They want to make it so hard they would rather shut down the border, build that wall. That is what they stand down. They want to make it near impossible for anybody who looks like myself, Black or brown, or does not look like an European immigrant. Make it really hard for them to come into this country. And on top of that, then we talk about the people who are here, who've been here for years, for nearly 30 years, unable to adjust their legal status. For instance, dreamers, young children who were brought to this country by their parents at a very young age, and then find out later that they never had an immigration status. Some of them have the ability to get DACA. Well, Republicans terminated. Well, during the Trump administration, they did everything possible to terminate that executive action that was taken by President Obama. That program is basically on its last legs, and possibly in 2025, it'll be terminated by the Supreme Court. That is what the Republican Party does. They want to, again, make it really hard to become a U.S. citizen or to even have any form of sort of legal status in this country, whether they're here or they're outside of the U.S. That's the kind of party they've become. Not to say that there aren't some pragmatic Republicans there, but their voices are not as powerful, sadly, as some others, or they've left Congress. Like, for instance, former Senator Flake. It was actually somebody who wanted to come to a bipartisan compromise. Then you have the Democratic Party, who, they want to be able to create legal pathways. They want to be able to actually address the root causes of migration. There's so much instability in the region, and they know that it's going to be a cycle where there's going to be more people coming to the border, climate refugees, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So they're looking to, like, how do we actually address this? They want to be able to deliver a path to citizenship to dreamers and long-settled undocumented immigrants who've been here for years and are looking to adjust their status. That is probably the center of what holds all Democrats together, is that path to citizenship for dreamers and others. And then you get to, like, sort of a bit of the semantic of how to secure the border, right? Some believe it's going a little bit tougher, limiting a little bit of asylum. Some of them believe we're creating a better infrastructure. So we're investing in the right places across the border. It does need investment. We need to be able to invest and address the people who are coming into the border.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious too. It feels like this political battle over immigration kind of like comes in waves, and I feel like we're in one right now. And I'm curious to kind of get the snapshot of, like, what the flow of immigration is looking like right now. And, like, in the media, we're hearing, like, all about this border crisis, and sometimes it's hard to really, like, trust whether it's dramatized through the media and for, like, political reasons, or, like, what is the current status and the reality of, like, what it is like to come here as an immigrant, and, like, what it looks like at our border right now.
Sure, yes. The cycle of migration has always ebbed and flowed. The difference is that now there is one party who is putting a spotlight under it. And so you feel like there is this crisis when really it is the same cycle that we've been seeing, with more people coming from different parts of the country. Different parts of the Latin American region. So you have people who are coming from Venezuela, who are coming from other parts of Central America that we hadn't seen before. It's because their governments are so unstable. Venezuela, there is a dictator in place right now. And so we have a bigger flow of Venezuelans. And you're seeing actually Chinese immigrants taking that journey, so there is a lot of different migrants from different places that we hadn't seen before. And that is part of just the cycle of global migration. When there are problems in certain countries, that you will see an increase in migration. So what does it look like down there? Yes, there's many folks, but we also now have to deal with Texas government and other Republican governors who want to make a political point. So instead of working with the government to see how, and other NGOs, and investing in welcoming communities and getting creative, because you have governors like the governor from Utah and mayors in Pennsylvania who are like, come to my town. We need workers. Come to my state. We need to revitalize our economy, and we have shortages to fill. Instead of working in those smart ways, right, they're sending migrants to democratic cities, really tricking them, which is horrible. So you have these poor migrants who some of them don't have family here, because, again, these are new migrants. These are new from countries that where they haven't been here for a long time. So there's not a lot of immigrants with long roots, right? Most of the time, some of these migrants who come from, for instance, El Salvador, there's huge populations of Salvadorians in Maryland, New Jersey, California. So they have family. So they can go to family. Some of these migrants don't have those families. Venezuelans are new types of immigrants. So, which is history, right? When you had the Irish come, Italian come, they all sort of had to figure it out. But anyway, I digressed. I went into one of those tangents, but the point is that they're being used as political pawns and sent to Chicago, New York, and something to create chaos. And meanwhile, there's many of the cities and NGOs there and nonprofits who are working to sort of find and help them resettle and help them connect with the families that they might have. And it is an operation that needs to be invested rather than politicized the way it has.
Yeah, totally. Which just seems to be like the constant vibe and MO. And what I think keeps like being the missing piece is the humanity of it all. Like these governors are literally playing God with people's lives, which is really scary and just, again, it's inhumane. It's just not the thing to do. You'd think it's common sense, but apparently not. So I'm curious what some of those solutions could be to counter those governors. Like, is there anything that could also counter specifically like what they're doing besides some federal legislation? Like what is something that maybe like another state or another city could do to help counter that behavior?
Yes. Well, you have, for instance, there's two mayors from Pennsylvania recently came out, talking to the press. One is from Erie, PA, and another one is from Pittsburgh, and actually there's a few more as well, who said, we're happy to welcome some of these migrants because we need our cities are dwindling, and we want to revitalize our economy, and we want to be able to sort of give them homes here. We have room. And so that's the kind of things that local governments can do, be able to see that and be able to reach out to these cities and welcome many of these migrants who are looking for job opportunity or basically just safety and a place to sort of rebuild their lives again. So I think that's one of the things that local governments can do. And I think they are doing, governing, like I mentioned, the Utah governor, Governor Cox, who is a Republican, is trying to work with other governors to see what can we do to help do what Congress won't do, which is deliver a solution that helps all of us.
Yeah. So Republicans have been this huge roadblock, obviously. I'm also curious what you think about just like Democrats. I guess just more urgency around the issue. I know we've talked about Democrats having kind of like the right solutions and their head in the right place in terms of like what needs to be done. But do you think that there is the urgency or the, like initiative from the Democrats side to kind of like also push these solutions through? Or is it just like Republicans' roadblocks are too much?
Well, currently right now, they are trying to push a solution, which is the Biden administration working with Senator Murphy from Connecticut and Senator Sinema and a few other Republicans who are trying to work out a deal that can demonstrate that they're serious about the border. And so they're trying to work out a compromise. The proposals that they're trying to push, I don't necessarily agree with them, but I can see how they're trying to demonstrate good faith in trying to reach a compromise, a solution to mitigate the flow of migration at the border or to address what's happening right now. So I think there's always Democrats, there's a lot of willingness to negotiate, a lot of willingness to come to a compromise, a lot of willingness to concede things that normally Democrats do not want to concede. Right. But still have this Republican Party who is very much extreme. And one phone call from a certain candidate can blow up that whole negotiation.
Which is wild on so many levels. I don't even know where to start. But speaking of wild, the Republicans are also trying to impeach, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Because instead of course, creating actual solutions, let's just get rid of the people that could implement them. Naturally, Logic. So I'm curious what your perspective is on this. And also, like, how did we get here? Like, how did we get to a point where the GOP is thinking, like, this is the move?
Again, it's all about politics. Their top three issues in an election cycle has almost always been the economy, immigration, and crime. And that's what they use to weaponize against their opponents. And immigration, sadly, is always used in a very horrible way, as is crime, and the way they portray, who are the criminals, and Democrats are all about defunding, blah, 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 blah. On immigration, they use whatever they can, both in Congress and through the many ways that they reach their voters to weaponize this issue. And so they see impeaching Secretary Mayorkas as a way of demonstrating that they are serious about immigration, and that this is a way to also scapegoat what's happening, who's at fault for creating this crisis, and Republicans being the ones to solve it. And so that is their way. This is, the impeachment is symbolic. It's a political game. It's throwing red meat to their rabid base on this issue. And so sadly, they're just wasting, taxpayers' money on an impeachment that's not going to go anywhere. And if we look at sort of just holistically, the whole big picture on immigration, how they've weaponized it, and it's just one tactic of many. In the 2022 cycle, during that election cycle, they spent over $171 million on anti-immigrant ads. They are very disciplined. They will use this issue and use it against Democrats and paint a horrible picture that sadly really starts exacerbating, voters' view of what immigration means to America.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're sort of at right now. They just know how to politicize this issue really well and weaponize it to the point that many Americans start wondering, there is a problem. There's a real serious problem with immigration, and it's coming to my neighborhood. If you looked at New Hampshire and their polling for Republicans, their top issue was immigration. New Hampshire, there's no border. New Hampshire. There's no southern border New Hampshire. The issue hasn't even come close to their state.
Yeah.
So that's the power of the Republican machine.
Right. Well, looking at this election here and looking at the politics and the messaging and the voters, like what in 2024 are you guys finding with voters in terms of like what is resonating with people, at least maybe on like the opposite side of combating some of this like fear mongering coming from the right? What does work to kind of like flip the narrative?
Well, here's the thing. The issue isn't that, as I always like to say, people aren't anti-immigrant. They're anti-chaos. And so there's a responsibility of the Democratic Party and candidates and operatives who work in this to talk about the solutions, to talk about the shared values. What we have right now is a Democratic Party who has ceded the issue to the Republicans. So they're talking really loud up here, deploying ads after ads, being very disciplined when they come on air. Right-wing media is helping amplify this. Online misinformation is also being leveraged. So they're dominating the conversation on immigration. And so what that happens is that Democrats, feel like they can't talk about it. There is no solution to sort of countering this. So they rather pivot away from it or just kind of go try to out-Republican the Republican on the issue. That doesn't win, because when we look at the numbers, the majority of the American public, the voters in particular, in battleground states, support a path to citizenship, support investing in our border security, support, doing something that will save dreamers from being deported. They're against family separation. They're against building the border wall. You know, a lot of the solutions that Democrats believe in are supported by the American public, but they have to talk about it. They have to communicate on it. They have to do some ads. I often get the question, well, how many ads did Democrats do on immigration? You can literally count, like, in the 2022 cycle, how many Democrats actually did ads on immigration? 5. You know,
Crazy.
first, there's so many more candidates on the Republican side who did immigration ads. So it's a real problem of communication.
Right.
Totally. That's something we talk about all the time. It's like the messaging is so key, and also understanding like how to communicate facts and what's going on and what that actually looks like. And especially with immigration, I think, you're so right. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a Democrat put out an immigration related ad. Like, the more I think about it, I'm like, couldn't have crossed my desk. You know what I mean? And so I'm curious though, for like a Dem that says, you know what? Good idea, guys. Like, let me put an ad out there. Let me like work my magic. Like, what do you think like that type of messaging should look like? Like, what are those points that like they should be hammering home?
I think it's really important for a Democrat to say that they believe in border security, and they also believe in our promise to dreamers and undocumented immigrants who have been here, who are part of our culture, our communities, to build a path to citizenship for them. It is a balanced approach that they have to talk about. It's not one or the other, but it's both. I think one of the best messengers of that formula, talk about what we stand for, tap into the shared values, and contrast yourself against Republicans. That formula is what works. And I think one of the candidates who is now a senator who did it the best was Senator Fetterman in Pennsylvania. He had one of the best ads on immigration, where he ended it with saying, "Immigration makes America America." You know, it captures really the sentiment of what we know as immigration in our country. But he also talks in that ad about how much it's helped Pennsylvania, from early on to what it is today. And I think you're able to tap into those values with Americans. There's a good response. There's a good support. The other person who did it well was Mark Kelly in Arizona, who talked about what it means to enforce the law at the border, but also to support dreamers who are here in the country. He was able to sort of tackle both. And that shows that what that sends to the voters says, I hear you. I know you might be nervous about the border. I support solutions that address that. And I hear you also to our progressive base and everybody who supports good immigration reform that includes a path to citizenship. I hear you too. So it's sending a message to all types of voters and soothing whatever stress or anxiety they might have about the issue, while also delivering something on solutions. That works with the American people. We need more of that. And if they did that, I'm pretty sure, Republicans would be in trouble. And if we look back at those two candidates, they won. They won.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, there are solutions in the works right now, like we talked about. People are negotiating on this issue. Can you kind of run down what the latest is and how people can kind of pay attention and keep track of this piece of legislation that's moving?
Sure. So currently, there's a bipartisan group of senators who are negotiating a deal that strictly addresses the border and asylum, mostly asylum law. There's some dangerous components to it. If it comes out of that deal, which should come out this week, there's going to be debate. The devil's in the details. We'll see what the text says and go from there. But it's important for people to pay attention to those details, because there are proposals within there that would completely ban people from seeking asylum and that give authority to the administration to be able to deport families who are down at the border who might not meet this credible fear standard that they have, which they are increasing, and they will easily deport these families back to the countries that they fled from. That is not good. That undermines international law, our commitment to people fleeing persecution, etc. But on top of that, if this goes through with those dangerous proposals, and we are under a Trump administration, hopefully that is not the case, they will exacerbate those powers, ramp them up, and really use it in a way that could separate many families again and jeopardize and create more chaos down at the border and to migrant families and other families who are seeking safety. So we would be sending dangerous precedents. So it's really important that people pay attention to those details. From the Senate, and go for vote, and then go to the House, where we don't know what will happen because there's a lot of hard right folks. So we'll take it from there. But just be aware of that. And it's important to call your members of Congress if these details come on and you see how dangerous they are. Call your members of Congress, have conversations with folks who are politically involved and who can make also those phone calls, because we don't want to send dangerous president. We don't want to send something that just creates chaos at the border and does nothing for the people who have been here for a long time as well. So leave you that, but that's it's sort of a big deal right now, these negotiations.
Yeah. Totally. Lots to keep an eye on for sure. Well, as we sort of come to a wrap, how can people keep an eye on the work that you guys are doing and get involved with anything, on the Immigration Hub radar?
Sure, yes. Follow us on Twitter. We are on Twitter and Threads for the latest updates. But also, as this 2024 campaign pushes forward, we're going to put out a lot of our research out there, from tracking all the bad ads from Republicans on immigration to tracking hopefully some good Democratic ads on immigration. But we'll also provide some other misinformation tracking that you should be aware of. One of the findings that we had in our last report out from 2022 on tracking misinformation online is that oftentimes the average Twitter user or the average online user doesn't know how to counter the other side on immigration. Well, we'll be able to we'll be putting out some talking points and some facts out there to add to your, to be able to add to your sort of tools to counter all the bad stuff, because we need people to talk back and we need people to sort of respond to all the negative misinformation on immigration. And we don't want what we saw in that report. We want the left or folks who are like-minded to feel demoralized by the other side. And so when you're demoralized, you don't speak on the issue and you kind of avoid it. We don't want that. We want an activated base who can talk good things about immigration. If you're as like-minded as if you feel the way I feel about immigration, which is it's good for the country, it's good to have to invigorate our culture. We want to see good solutions come out, to have good immigration reform someday. Then I hope you can be part of that conversation and sort of elevate those values and elevate what you know in your gut is good about immigration.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for coming on and running through all of this with us. This was great. And we just really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for doing all that you're doing. Your voices matter in this. So thank you.